Lawmakers agree on the urgency of dealing with the high cost of insulin. In September, Senate Republicans unveiled their Insulin Patient Assistance Program, and the House Democrats held a hearing on the Alex Smith Emergency Insulin Act. Joining me to outline the framework of the House proposal is Representative Michael Howard. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
The Alex Smith Emergency Insulin Act was named for Alex Smith, a 26-year-old man who died in 2017 while rationing his insulin until his next paycheck. There was a bill last session. It did not make it through. What is the gist of the plan right now?
Well, this bill was, as you mentioned, named after Alex Smith and started forming right around the kitchen table of Nicole Smith Holt and James Holt, Alex's parents. And Alex's story to ration your insulin because you can't afford a life-necessary drug and to pass away, that should just never happen in our state and our country. And we set out to build a plan that provides a safety net so that Minnesotans who might find themselves in that situation have access to insulin when they need it. As you mentioned, this bill cleared the House, a version of it cleared the Senate, but it ultimately the Senate decided they did not want to take this up in the regular session. And since then, we've seen Minnesotans who are outraged. They don't understand how we could not take action on this bill, and that public outcry has pushed us towards action. And we've made improvements to the bill, and I think that because of those voices of Minnesotans, we're moving closer to getting this done.
So the bill or the plan would provide a 90-day emergency supply to someone in that situation that Alec was in. So he could have gone to a pharmacy and gotten a 30-day supply, and then you qualify, and it goes from there. The Senate plan has been called an urgency plan, the House an emergency plan. But Senator Pratt pointed out that this plan does not address the need on day 91. So it helps someone like Alec make it through. But what happens on day 91?
You laid that out really well. You know, first we think we need to address the emergency. That's why our bill makes sure that if a Minnesotan goes into their pharmacist that moment, they can get access to an emergency supply of insulin. That has to be the first step so that we prevent the loss of life. We also need to address the long-term costs, and the Alex Smith Emergency Insulin Act does include direction to connect folks to long-term resources that might be available through the county and otherwise. That's important. Senator Pratt's bill takes another approach to provide a more medium-term, longer-term solution, and there's no reason why those two ideas can't work together. Let's first address the emergency, then address the urgency to make sure that Minnesotans have access to affordable insulin on a continuum of time.
Does it really need to be one and then the other, or is there room for a compromise, do you think? I mean, Governor Walz has said he will call a special session if that can be worked out. In your view, is that likely?
Well, to your first question, absolutely. These two ideas are not mutually exclusive. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to sit down, Democrats, Republicans who've been working on this issue, and agree, let's solve the emergency issue so that no other Minnesotan loses their life because they can't afford their insulin. And let's also make sure that we're providing long-term solutions to their care so that they can get dependable, affordable coverage for their insulin. Right now, the governor and the speaker have said, let's do this. Let's get to the table. Let's work together. And that's my approach, too. I want to get to the table as fast as we can because this is an urgent issue. And we've seen some signs from the Senate, and I hope that we can urgently work together to get this done this fall.
Now, both plans set up a fund. Well, actually, no, they don't set up a fund. The House plan will set up a fund that drug makers will pay a licensing fee, so that would provide the insulin. The Senate plan requires drug makers to give the insulin free of charge to those who qualify. Both plans are asking the pharmaceutical companies to be responsible for the costs in one way or another. Why is that?
First, that is a significant move towards reaching consensus. At the end of the legislative session, that was a key hang-up, I believe, for the Senate, that they were unwilling to ask the big pharmaceutical companies to have a large stake in paying for this. And now they've moved towards the House position. That's a good thing because we believe these large, and it's just three, these big three insulin manufacturers that control the global market, they have profited billions and billions of dollars while raising the list price of insulin by 12,000%. An insulin bottle that cost about $30 in 1990 now costs $300. They're responsible for price gouging Minnesotans, and they've profited richly off of it. So they absolutely have a role in solving this. The mechanism that we use to do so, I think we can talk about that and try to find some consensus, but those drug manufacturers, they should be held accountable.
Some insurance plans have now said that they will cap insulin costs at $25 per month. Beginning in January, it will be illegal in Minnesota for an insurance company to make any profit from the price of insulin. So because awareness has grown on this issue, pressure on insurance companies and drug makers is increasing on its own. Are things moving in the right direction?
I think pressure is the key word. Minnesotans are seeing what's happening, Americans are seeing what's happening to the price of insulin, and they're outraged, as they should be. And that public pressure brought by diabetic Minnesotans and Americans that are raising their voice is pushing folks to action. We're seeing insurance companies step up, legislators are stepping up. I will say the drug manufacturers, that's a group that has not stepped up. They need to be part of this solution. They're a huge part of the problem, and that's why it's so vital that they be held accountable.
Critics argue that this program is setting up an entirely new bureaucracy, and it will rely too heavily on the Department of Human Services, which has been plagued by problems of late. Is DHS, which is part of the House plan, the best agency to handle the program?
So a few things there. One, as we've set up this bill and this program, we wanted to use the existing pharmacy network, the existing infrastructure, really go out of our way not to set up a whole new bureaucracy or program, because we want to create as barrier-free a program as possible for patients. And that's what we've done. A Minnesotan can go to the pharmacist that they go to anytime to fill their prescription of insulin. Two, as to DHS, there's actually very little that we're asking directly of DHS to operate this program. The biggest piece, DHS will contract with the pharmacy benefit manager who has existing contracts with the network of pharmacies. That's the entity that will be the main administrative function. So it's a relatively low ask for DHS. We're not asking them to build a website or anything like that. So we believe this is an efficient use of public resources, and most importantly, creating an effective program that works for patients.
Now, you mentioned that it is going to rely in part on the pharmacy benefit managers, who have also been pointed to as part of the problem with skyrocketing costs. Does that concern you?
Well, we've taken care in the drafting of the legislation to make sure that pharmacy benefit managers will not be able to use rebates, which has been a huge discussion about how the price of drugs generally have increased. In terms of their role in this bill, it's far smaller than what you traditionally would think of pharmacy benefit managers managing a huge chunk of drugs and putting some on a formulary and others not. So it's not quite the same dynamic. We do need to pay attention to our pharmacy benefit managers. They are an important part of the overall discussion on the cost of prescription drugs.
Representative Howard, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.